Today is the beginning of Ebony Parker's trial in Newport News. If you remember back, this is a story we have covered extensively over the course of the incident itself, everything that came in the aftermath in terms of investigation and revelation, and then, of course, a trial that happened even before this one. This case has already been through the judicial system to a certain degree, as there was a civil trial not long ago. Now, today, on Monday, May 18th, begins the criminal trial for Ebony Parker, a former Newport News assistant principal. This is the latest development in that shooting that happened in January of 2023. Parker faces 8 counts of felony child neglect in connection with the shooting of first grade teacher Abby Zwerner. That shooting by a 6-year-old student in Abby Zwerner's class. One of her own students that she taught shot her back in 2023, January of 2023. And it has been an event that really has rocked Hampton Roads over the course of the last 3 years and has made major headlines nationally, and it is obvious why. Now, we have Madison Schlegel out live in Newport News. She's at the courthouse as we speak. She has already had, I'm sure, a very busy morning, but she takes a little bit of time to join us here today to speak about the onset of this trial. Madison, first of all, good morning. Thank you for joining us here. And secondly, just what are you seeing, first impression, as you embark on this trial?
Yeah, Connor, as you've said, it's been a busy morning already. We learned that the judge in this case is going to be Judge Rebecca M. Robinson, and this case is going to be held here in the Circuit Court, Courtroom 3. Now, the trial was supposed to start with jury selection here at 9:30, but the judge actually had another case that she was hearing quickly before they got started with the Parker case this morning. So that case that the judge was hearing before this case just wrapped up, and moments ago I just walked out of the courtroom here where the attorneys for the case in the Parker case were introducing themselves and made themselves known for the record. So right now we've got a little bit of that information. We learned that for the prosecution will be Joshua Jenkins serving as a special prosecutor from Hampton Commonwealth's attorney. We have been previously told by the Newport News Commonwealth's attorney that the Hampton Commonwealth's attorney will be handling this case instead of them. Now, as you remember, those original charges, those 8 charges against Ebony Parker were brought on by the Newport News Commonwealth's attorneys, but again, those charges have since been handed off to Hampton. Now, in the case of Ebony Parker handling her defense today, we've got Curtis Rogers. He will be here in the courtroom on behalf of Ebony Parker. And again, right now, what that judge is hearing inside of the courtroom right before jury selection starts right now are a couple motions too. She opened the floor to see if any of the attorneys had anything they wanted to bring up before the jury was even brought into the room. And as I was leaving the courtroom, what we were hearing was from Ebony Parker's defense. They were talking about a motion surrounding video evidence from a former attorney in the case. Now, back in the civil trial that Abby Zwerner filed representing Ebony Parker was Sandra Douglas as an attorney there. Now, in conversation with Douglas, the attorney representing Parker today says that there was some video that was uncovered from their office that he hadn't yet seen before. So he was talking to the judge about specifics of that video and whether or not they would be able to use that in the court today, or should I say across the timeline of this case. Now, when it comes to what's happening right now, Connor, again, we're hearing those motions right now, but the judge did tell us that the jury was going to be seated in 2 different seats, seat A and seat B, panel A and panel B, pardon me. So panel A will be welcomed in first. As I was walking out of the courtroom, the judge told us that the jurors were seeing the rest of whatever videos or information that they needed to know before they could even sit down for jury selection. So as you said, it's been a busy morning, and even though the case got started a little bit later than maybe anticipated this morning, things are definitely underway here in Newport News.
Well, thank you so much, Madison. And you mentioned litany of things that kind of speak to the level of intrigue and depth that goes along with this case. Already we have so many details that sort of require a little bit of extra attention just because they're so unique in their nature. I think what jumps out to me from a human perspective is there's so much expectation and anticipation of this case, years worth even. There's been other judicial proceedings. It's been extremely public in its nature. And then the day comes and well, it starts a little late because the judge has other things on their schedule. It's always interesting how human nature seems to work itself into even sort of the biggest of stories and the most attention-grabbing days. Now, I do want to ask, in terms of jury selection, anything in particular that you would keep your eye on as far as how that jury comes together?
Yeah, Connor, we've been previewing this case since last week, and we were actually able to sit down with 13 News Now legal analyst Ed Booth, and he was saying that jury selection for this case is going to be an interesting one to watch for those reasons that, Connor, you just mentioned. So the notoriety that this case has already seen over the last 3 years. Not only was this a shocking case right here in Newport News and Hampton Roads, but frankly, across the country, this shooting truly made its impact on people and gun violence advocates across the country as well. So right now, what Ed Booth says is going to be an interesting thing to look out for is the level of knowledge that these jurors have about the case so far and whether or not on the stand they're able to say under oath that they can wash away those preconceived notions that they have to hear this case to be fair and balanced. Again, Ed Booth said at the end of the day, our legal analyst for 13 News Now, Ed Booth, says that at the end of the day, what they're focused on most is having a fair and balanced jury. But like you said, Connor, given the waves that this case has made, not just here, but across the country, it's going to be interesting to see the level of knowledge that those jurors walk in the room with this morning.
Yeah, and it's the two factors that you mentioned. It really is. One, it'd be difficult to find anyone who doesn't at least have a vague recollection of this case. And then number two, beneath sort of that those 8 charges that everyone is trying to sort of figure out, you then have all those layers of sort of more big picture things when it comes to education, safety within public schools, when it comes to gun control. There's all these issues that have kind of come together in one courtroom, which speaks to the difficulty that you've mentioned. Last question, because I know you got to get out of here. Anything you're seeing around the area? Are there any sort of crowds, family members, extra activity around the courtroom because it is such a unique and high-profile trial?
Yeah, Connor, granted, this case started a little later today than maybe some people expected, but to be honest, the amount of people in the courtroom wasn't as many as maybe we expected to see. It was a handful of us media and maybe 4 or 5 other people, and then as the judge was hearing the case before the Parker trial, we did see Ebony Parker and at least with one other person with her come into the courtroom and sit down and wait for her name to be called this morning. But again, the turnout here this morning has been quieter, but again, this is just day one. This is just jury selection. So this is just the tip of the iceberg that we're going to be seeing all this week.
Okay, wonderful. And all this week, we will be hearing from Madison Schlegel as she will be covering this case for the duration. We appreciate a little bit of time this morning, and we look forward to talking to you again soon, Madison. All right, that's Madison Schlegel out in Newport News. But remember, the Hampton Commonwealth's attorney now handling this case, as we learned from Madison just now. It was originally brought by the Newport News Commonwealth's attorney, but it'll be the Hampton Commonwealth's attorney handling the prosecution in this case, along with some assistance from special prosecutors, once again, as Madison mentioned. Now, this is Monday at 10 a.m. We are 10 minutes into our show. We are going to have thorough and consistent coverage of this trial as it goes along. This is far from the last you'll hear of this, both here on Live Impact News and on 13 News Now at noon, 4, 5, 6, 11. We will have very, very up-to-date information coming your way as soon as we get it. Not only is Madison Schlegel out at this trial, Sarah Calloway will be assisting her out at this trial. So we will have a lot of coverage here just on Live Impact News with live updates from reporters. So stay with us throughout the week and we'll continue to cover this case. We'll be bringing on experts to break down what we see day to day. Of course, we'll be hearing from Ed Booth, who assists us a great deal when it comes to legal coverage. So a lot lot of coverage from Richneck Elementary School, the Ebony Parker trial, those 8 counts of felony child neglect in connection with the shooting of Abby Zwerner. Okay.